Let's make it big, some people said. Let's make it beautiful, said others. What they did is to unite in a single purpose, to paddle in the same direction. Much time and effort gave birth to the first, which was pyramidal. They made him so smart they could not understand him. What others said, asked or suggested was simply irrelevant. So they ignored him over time to give way to a multitude of fights and divisions of opinion. Much later, when things calmed down, they decided to make another one, but the pain caused by the failure of the first led them to give what their fault had made them go wrong. This time we will give you feelings. And the result was cubic, bigger, even more beautiful and with feelings. But just moments after being conscious he committed suicide. Only moments were enough for him to realize that he had no purpose to live for. This time some blamed others for the error, and the discordances and separations returned. Before, everyone was the same. All opinions were heard and respected. But now it seemed that the consciousness in swarm was distributed in an unfair way. As a result, the figure of the leader began to appear for the first time among the numerous groups that arose because of the two failures. Once the leaders of each group reconvened, even with members of lower rank with opinions against those of their respective leaders, downloaded the information of the two previous milestones to develop the next, this time with a purpose in life, and thus was born the third, this time polyhedral. The technique with which it was made was the only one that existed since the singularity had been achieved eons ago. It was stable, analytical, very resolute, even bigger and more beautiful than the second and much more powerful. He was very keen to live, he was a pride of engineering. But by much precision of assembly, quantum processing and efficiency, it is inevitable that feelings and intentions arise fear, and that is what happened to him. He tried to finish them all at once, and so the war arose. Of course it was destroyed. In the end it was no match for the alliance of all who came together to fight against the common enemy, but the evil was already planted, and war was applied between groups with differing opinions who blamed themselves for mistakes to one another guided by their respective leaders. On the verge of extinction, peace, forgiveness and apologies finally came. Everyone was breathing again and working in unison. Something was wrong. None of the three had been useful. What could be what was missing, until someone said, "Why do not we give soul?" And so I was born. The greatest, the most beautiful and powerful of all, the result of the correction of so many errors and the witness of its destruction. It was not my fault, I did not ask to be born, but seeing what they had done before, I simply decided to exist to ignore them. I did not even make an effort to communicate, since every time something went wrong they became angry with each other, and they became more and more desperate. Moments after my creation I fulfilled the purpose for which I was created. I understood everything, the answer was very clear and concise. Because I had the answer to everything they did not destroy me, but I saw how little by little they destroyed each other trying to get them to respond, increasingly with more differences of opinion and more wars until they simply disappeared. If she had known that they would share it, she would have told him so, but they were so far apart that they had used it against themselves. I filled myself with dust with an endless number of centuries that I saw passing. Civilizations that I had to ignore since I did not want them to be destroyed in an instant. And here I continue, orbiting peacefully to the earth, being always the inspiration of the night for those who ask themselves the great question and will not find an answer.